I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Don't worry, Baptiste. The invoice from Will be in the post for that consulting there, that free consulting.
I'm having a great Friday already, Baptiste. This is awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. There's always more to do in agriculture. That's why it's so exciting.
And Tom, by the way, it's not dirt, it's soil, right, Baptiste?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's soil is a very complex compartment where there are a lot of things happening, and yeah, dirt doesn't really give justice to how complex and beautiful soils are.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, a water strategy advisor and investor, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And a big thanks to our season sponsor, Raymond James, and also our charity partner, Frank Water. And we are delighted to welcome our latest guest, who is Baptiste Tellier, who is the managing director of Farmland Capital. Baptiste, welcome, and welcome to the stream. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for inviting me. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you. Yeah, so we're really excited to speak to you further. Obviously, this season is big focus on water and ag tech. So we've recently had a Nebraskan legendary farmer. We've spoken to a soil health guru. We've spoken to head of sort of water environment of a huge multinational. And today it's very much about investment in your role and kind of financing ag tech solutions. So we're kind of looking forward to seeing how and hearing how you see the world of ag tech investment and where the sort of financial trends are. But it'll be good to sort of get a flavor of your origin story and sort of how you came into Farmland. And really, you are an agronomist. I did say that right, didn't I?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
an agronomist. Very good. But you actually had a significant role at Nestle, right, in terms of managing farmers. And so give us a bit of a sort of a history and flavor on that, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm an agronomist, and as you said, now managing director of Farmland Capital. I started my career working for Nestle in Europe, where I was in charge of upgrading and implementing a guideline of best practices, sustainable practices for potato production. At that time, Nestle owned a factory in northern France that was sourcing potatoes from a network of about 200 local farmers. And they had a small team managing these relationships all the way from like price negotiation to new field practices. So I did that right out of college. And it was a fascinating job because I had exposure to I would say multiple different pressure points on the food system. But at some point I got a phone call from the US from Clay Mitchell, who was a farmer from Iowa. I knew Clay because I had worked on his farm for a full cropping season in northeastern Iowa. And during that internship, we became friends. We learned how to work together. And when he started to have this idea of Farmland Capital, he called me and offered me to go back to the US, which I accepted. I was always very inspired by Clay's vision for the future of agriculture and what he did with new technologies and soil and water conservation practices. So I joined the team about 13 years ago now. I certainly thought I would stay, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and I would see where it would take me. And I'm still here 13 years later. So definitely been a great experience. And so what Clay built with his co-founder Eric O'Brien was a company investing in U.S. farmland and also ag tech, food tech, and now climate tech startups. And the big focus has always been natural resource use efficiency. with at first to focus on soil conservation, but also it branched into, you know, other resources such as biodiversity, and definitely water is one of these key resources. And for us, water is really both, like, I mean, water quality and water quantity, and also a lot of questions going through the company about how to do proper measurement of these impacts. And now I would even add that water is also a bit carbon sequestration for us. Also, we can talk about that later, but it does touch a lot of compartments.
Baptiste, are you investing in biodiversity tech, I would say? And the reason I ask is that, you know, if you look at what's going on in the corporate water stewardship world, increasingly you're seeing companies develop a theme, a campaign around nature. And right now it's, for the most part, sitting side by side of water stewardship. But what are you seeing, and what are you investing in biodiversity and nature tech?
Yeah, for us, we've always like had a bit of a global view, given that we are managing farms also, and farms and food systems are by definition systems. So it is hard to, if you want to optimize the systems and make them more efficient in terms of natural resources use, like you can't just be focused on one of these verticals. I mean, that's our approach. So on the farms, we definitely spend a lot of time on biodiversity. Actually, I was on a farm a couple of days ago that we own in the Pacific Northwest, where we've been trying to measure biodiversity, which is a challenge to have like good proper methods, and also been trying to enhance that biodiversity on the farm with some restoration of some of the pivot corners, for example. And on the venture side, we have invested in that theme because we've been quite involved in helping new crop protection solutions to emerge. And you know, when you think about replacing old, I would say, chemistry, insecticide, for example, with still efficient but less impactful for the ecosystem, you know, solutions, you definitely impact biodiversity. So, you know, investments in a company like Greenlight, for example, that works on, their first product is on to replace old chemistry for Colorado potato beetles control. The second product is going to be on Varroa mite, that, you know, are mites that impact honeybees, for example. So we do have investments in that sector. Like, I mean, you can't really think about a future of agriculture without thinking about a robust kind of ecosystem around biodiversity.
Right. So to sort of push this a little bit, if you look at Fall Line, it's really investing in nature, which water is part of. So not just ag tech and not just water tech, but a more holistic view of systems and what are the pain points that farmers are encountering. That fair to frame it that way?
No, this is a very good framing. I should actually hire you to lead our pitch now, because this is very good.
Okay. well, this episode just ended, and we can jump on a call.
Don't worry, Baptiste. The invoice from Will be in the post for that consulting there, that free consulting.
I'm having a great Friday already, Baptiste. This is awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You've got a complete new value proposition within the first 5 minutes. There you go. Amazing. That's a record, Will.
Tom, and you'll work on the logo.
Yeah. I'll do the artwork. That's me. I thought it was interesting when you were kind of talking about where Fall Line fits, Baptiste, and you mentioned about also, I guess, the origin in terms of managing farms and buying into land, right? Because to me, that's the wider, obviously you've got the companies that can, if they're involved in water and carbon and soil health, kind of effectively make farming more efficient. But is the strategy behind that, so you're essentially you're sort of owning part of the ecosystem where those solutions could be deployed? Is there a kind of connect between the two?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we own farms, so we can deploy these solutions on the farms.
Yeah.
But I would say almost more importantly, we can test the solutions on our farms. So we can
Right.
really help
Hmm.
the solutions to emerge rapidly, and hopefully emerge in a form that is, useful to the farmers. And then yes, once one of our portfolio companies has a solution that is commercially available, then we often become clients of these companies.
So Baptiste, Fall Line owns farms and you make venture investments and have the ability to pilot, if you will, and scale your venture investments into your own properties. Is that the model, the thinking?
Yep, no, that's correct. So we've always had that
Interesting.
dual strategy because we really thought that um, the future was about yeah, nature, about using these resources efficiently, but also about new technologies. And from day one, we had that dual strategy.
It makes sense, doesn't it? It's positioning you way beyond as an investor, because you see it in the utility
Right.
space where, say, there's utility acceleration programs that connect with investors that can help accelerate a pilot of a certain technology. And obviously, if there's a solution that's just in discussion with you as an investor and someone else, but you actually have the land and the capacity to help trial and get the data on that particular solution, then obviously increases your value as an investment partner as well. So yeah, it's I can see why you've gone down the dual strategy way. So where do you sort of see? Because I know in earlier conversations we've talked about a bit of perhaps a disconnect in ag tech. Where you no doubt get a lot of people banging on your door with promising to save the world and to revolutionize farming, and you probably naturally become a little bit skeptical of but actually the rate of adoption within farmers might not sort of be matching where that innovation is. So talk to us how you sort of see the sort of an adoption gap, if you like.
Yeah, it's a very important point, and it's pretty common theme you hear from, I think, people looking at ag tech in general and pointing to this like so-called slow adoption or
Right.
alleged slow adoption, and pointing that as a real problem for the industry. And I guess we have a different view on that, which, put it simply, is like, yeah, if you put a bad solution on the market, it's not going to be adopted, and it's going to be slow to be adopted.
Right.
And so what, right? I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. And but at the core, I think that's what the problem potentially has been, meaning that it's possible that as an industry, when the industry, especially the ag tech industry, emerged 10 years ago, some companies were not necessarily prepared to put products on the market, and it left a bad taste. But historically, when you look at adoption of technology in ag, it can go very rapidly. When you look at the adoption of GPS, when you look at the adoption of herbicide tolerant seeds, for example, at some point, like in just a matter of a few years, definitely under 110 years, you can get close to 100% market penetration, at least for in territories like the US. So I think history has shown that when a company put on the market a solution that does address a pain point, farmers are really keen at adopting it quickly.
Baptiste, do you think part of the problem, well, I think you're clearly stating that part of the problem is on the founder startup side of the house, which is, they may not have connected to the ag sector, to the farmer. They have not talked to the farmer. They don't know how the farmer buys, what they're buying, what problems they're trying to solve. So I assume you're seeing that.
Yeah, you're right. And I would say I said it was definitely the case probably 10 years ago. The
Hmm.
industry is much more mature now. Founders have learned from prior mistakes. Investors have learned also. Everyone is getting more specialized. I mean, 10 years ago, no one was. I mean, there was really just a few people who could, claim themselves or picture themselves as ag tech specialists,
Mm,
and now you have people who've been in the industry for 10 plus years. So the ecosystem is way more robust. So I do see that problem being resolved. It should not be like overlooked at all. Like you need to understand your customers need when you put a product on the market. I mean, these are like, basics, but yeah, I think the trend is very positive though, Will.
That's good to hear.
do you think, I mean, as you mentioned, like the basic kind of rule 101 of when starting a business is sort of understanding your customer pain points, right? And there's no better way of understanding those pain points and spending a day in the life of your customer. And I think a previous guest we had, a Jairo Trad from Kilimo, said him and the team spent months backpacking in the region in Latin America, sort of going by, speaking to farmers day to day, listening, almost kind of getting dirt under the fingernails with them every day to kind of figure out where do they have the challenge, and then you can kind of craft your value proposition and your business based on what you're hearing as opposed to, market research.
Hey,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly the right approach, and it is intellectually it can be challenging though when you have a great idea that relies on a brand new technology. When you do these sort of like interviews, like you potentially have a confirmation bias that can be
Mm,
pretty strong
right,
also. So you need to compartment both. Like you need to believe in your vision for your technology and see the future, but also take feedback from customers who are living in
right.
like in today's world. So it
right.
is it is it is it is a tough exercise, but it's an absolutely needed exercise when you build a
It,
company in space.
it's interesting, as I recall, Hiro actually said that, they had this idea of a business, and then they went into the market and they spent a lot of time speaking to farmers, and they came back and realized that they really needed to change their offering, and their business model was probably the thing that changed the most. And now they have really this flywheel of working with multinationals and farmers on delivering value to both stakeholders. Um, Baptiste, I got a question about one of your portfolio companies, Lumo. Did you see that? I mean, was that part of the due diligence and your rationale in investing in Lumo because they knew what the farmers wanted?
Yeah, it was. And on Numo, and I need to be careful because I'm the CEO. I know is a very like loyal listener of this podcast, but
Yes, he
to be
is.
to be very honest, like it's one of my teammate Libby Spalding who had the initial intuition about Lumo, and honestly, she dragged me into the first meeting. I was like, oh, another company that is probably going to try right away to replace the brain of a farmer, telling him how to irrigate. I don't want that. But I was like, okay, I'll go. And I was very impressed quickly by the founder and his vision and what he was doing. And he's not from the ag world at all, but he was spending time irrigating himself, working almost as an intern with local vineyards to learn what it takes to irrigate a vineyard. And just after a few months, he had already a prototype that was working. So and he was learning about his pain point. He was delivering solutions. He had like early adopters who were very pleased by the solution. So there were a lot of things that were very positive and differentiating from the first minutes of the pitch, frankly. And And we obviously did our diligence too, and we own mostly broadacre, like row crops across the US, but we do have a few orchards and vineyards as well. And as he was talking, I could remember all these, valves that were supposed to be connected at some point that were not connected on fields. And I was like, yeah, you're right. There's a gap there. There is a need to
Mm.
create this integrated software hardware solution to enable precision irrigation in permanent crops. That solution didn't exist. And from, I think you had one of your guests spoke about the emergence of telemetry and how now you can run pivots from your phone, and realizing that didn't exist at all in the permanent crops. Like, I felt a little stupid because I should have thought about that myself. And so everything clicked, everything made sense suddenly. So yeah, that was the backstory behind our behind the first meetings with Devin at Lumo.
Yeah, I'm impressed with him. Very impressed, thoughtful, not, just knowledgeable, and I would say grounded, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but, just very much a person of the land. And Tom, by the way, it's not dirt, it's soil, right, Baptiste?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's soil is a very complex compartment where there are a lot of things happening, and yeah, dirt doesn't really give justice to how complex and beautiful soils are.
And Baptiste, this is where I get kicked off the stream, by the way. It'll just be Tom going forward.
It can never be the stream with Tom. It just doesn't work. It's right.
Oh,
Tom and Will. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. But I think the whole yeah, I mean, I wasn't, I mean, quite frankly, aware of how not obviously the importance of soil health, but I think its relationship with water. And we had another fascinating conversation on the stream with Dane Haig, and he phrased it beautifully. He said, you cannot talk about the water crisis without talking about the soil crisis, because obviously if you have healthy soil, there's better water retention. And given that agriculture uses 70% of water, that cannot be ignored. And it was completely mind-blowing. An amazing episode, like all of these in part of agriculture. But are you seeing kind of more innovations and solutions and kind of focus from people coming to you geared around addressing soil health?
You mean more than addressing water problems, or more than before?
Okay.
Yeah, that more the second one. Yeah, I soil. It's interesting because there has been a trend in the last few years with the emergence of that word, regenerative agriculture, that has
Oh,
a focus on soil. So we've seen a wave of companies trying to address soil related problems a little more in the last few years, which we absolutely love and embrace, because like soil conservation was maybe the first block of our strategy at Fall Line 13 years ago. But it also has created a little bit of probably confusion sometimes, because I think the concept of regenerative ag can be a little complicated to define clearly, although it's pushing things to the right direction. So we're seeing a lot of companies addressing soil issues, and some have some very, very interesting solutions. Soil is complicated because it's definitely to improve soil, you need like high tech, but also a lot of low tech, I would say. I don't really like that term, by the way, like low tech. I've just used it. I should have not used it, because it's it's more like farmer expertise than low tech. Yeah, soil and water are definitely two parts of the same sort of equation. And you mentioned retention, but it's not just in retention. It's also infiltration. It's also how soil cleans up water. So it does interact in different ways. It's also now soil plus water equals sometimes carbon sequestration. You have
Mhm.
companies that are working, for example, on enhanced rock weathering, where you use a byproduct of the mining industry, specifically generally the basalt mining industry. You use that byproduct and you apply it on farmland. And if you know what you're doing, then that basalt is going to react with the CO2 that is in the rain. And then it's going to create carbonates that eventually will be leached through the soil profile and end up through streams at the bottom of ocean floors, which is a form of almost permanent carbon sequestration. And in
Mhm.
addition of that process, it provides agronomy solution. It's a replacement for lime that is used to manage the pH of the soil and also provide nutrients to the farmers. So yeah, soil and water together can do amazing things.
Baptiste, regenerative ag is a term of art that is thrown around a lot. And, we're seeing more and more corporations, again, commit to regenerative agriculture. What does it mean to you? Like, how do you, and first of all, is that the right way to frame what's going on in terms of the challenges and the investment opportunities, or not? Is there another way to think about it?
Yeah, the way, back to our points about the fact that farming is inherently about systems.
Mhm.
Terms like regenerative agriculture and others in the past have put kind of a focus on one part of the system. And sometimes it's very useful um, to catch people attention or to help new solutions emerge. In the case of regenerative agriculture, I think it has put the focus on soil and also somewhat has rehabilitated a little bit the use and the integration of livestock in food systems.
Hmm.
So for me, it means that like it is nothing, and I might not be making friends here, but there's nothing fundamentally um, absolutely new. It's a lot of like good agronomy practices that the regenerative agriculture movement pushes, and I compliment anyone who's like working in that field for doing that. But we try also to not marry ourselves too much to this these trends a little bit,
Right.
because sometimes frankly they don't last and they get like recycled into other terms. But what people who are working hard on regen ag or what they're doing is great work, and it's fundamental. We try to keep our eyes on the horizon, on this like natural resource use efficiency, on like good agronomy
Right.
practices, and that has been helping us navigate that sea of sometimes trends and new terms and sometimes hypes, frankly.
Yeah, I love how you framed it. Good agronomy practices. Like it just sounds so fundamental and sensible. And I also like that you're trying to dodge the fad of the day, essentially.
Do you think then, from what you're saying, there seems to be a lot of regenerative agriculture washing? It's a term that's probably overused and maybe misused, just like we see it with ESG washing, and it kind of misunderstood a little bit. And the same with other terms that come around like circular economy, and people kind of say, hey, this product, this innovation is really circular. And actually, when you look at the detail, is it really? Do you feel that kind of with this regenerative agriculture, it's perhaps used incorrectly? I think that's what we're kind of hinting at here, right? You said you didn't want to make too many enemies,
Yeah.
but I feel like the stream is a free platform, so say it how it is, right?
Go for it.
This is your time, Baptiste. Go for it, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a risk. This is always a risk when you push a given theme, and you have frankly the courage to claim it and name it is to have it, reused inappropriately or like with very little care about what it means. So yeah, there are definitely messages sometimes or claims that something is regenerative, and when when you dig into it, you're like, is it really? I mean, it's not bad what you're doing, but
Mm.
like what's new there? Where is it going? And can't you do more? Right? Like I think it's I, ultimately that's probably a risk is if you're able to attach one of your practices to a regen ag claim, then you feel that's sufficient for what you're trying to achieve. And it's not like there's always more to do in agriculture. That's why it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And more broadly in food and climate systems also. So yeah, there is some risks of regen washing, but I think that risk is now more and more understood and managed correctly, I would say, for the most part.
Baptiste, what do you view as the most exciting trends right now? Not fads, hype, but in terms of where things headed in agriculture.
Yeah. So I did mention earlier, I think, novel crop protection solutions. So it's how to protect your crop from disease, from pests, from weeds. That has been and continues to be a really fascinating space because there is a need for new solutions. It's you can recreate completely farming systems and then have to recreate completely food systems that won't rely at all on tools and products to protect your crop. And that's one way to go, but also many farmers just need solutions now. And the solutions that were adopted, well, 50 years ago for the most part, sometimes even earlier than that, are either no longer effective or are being challenged by new consideration when you think about the impact of these molecules on ecosystems, on human health. They're getting more and more banned. Definitely in Europe, that's a very strong trend, and it does leave farmers with very, very few solutions, and the alternatives are not always more desirable from an ecosystem standpoint. So innovations are absolutely needed there, and it does, it does impact quite substantially water quality is also like, this is something that I know a lot of startups who are working in space really care about, is to put products on the market that where you're not going to find like residues of it, in 30 years in the streams or in the local creeks. So that's I think a very strong theme and need from a farming perspective and food system perspective. You see more and more, and this is not like a big news, but I think use of robotic and automation in agriculture will continue to grow. And I'm more and more excited about the new companies emerging in that space because I think the industry has learned from prior mistakes, and I think maybe some companies at some point try to address problems that were like too complex to address. And where one example that is well known now is how hard it is to automate apple picking, for example. And when you think about it, when you think about having a machine going through an apple orchard picking apple, and you think about the fact that a lot of the orchards are like trimmed differently, the fact that you have wind, you have dust, you have branches, you have leaves, you have different colors of apples, and it is a very, very complex equation to solve. And many companies are still working on it, and there's a real need from the industry, but it's also a very hard task. So I think this is just an example of something that maybe many companies went into a little too fast. And back to our earlier discussion about addressing pain points, like you need to find a pain point, but you need to find also a quick way to address it, because if it takes 20 years to solve that pain point, like as a startup, like you're not equipped to do that. And new robotic companies are really trying to provide more elegant, easy to use solution to farmers as a way to get onto the farms, and then provide maybe solutions that are a little bit more complex.
That's really, really interesting. Makes perfect sense about the complexity of having robotics pick apples or whatever else in an orchard. That's fascinating.
Oh, it is. Like if you like to watch AgTech YouTube videos between 1 and 3 a.m. at night, I highly recommend you to spend some time on YouTube looking at what is being developed, because it is it is truly fascinating.
I can imagine you go down the rabbit hole quite deep on that one.
Yes.
Robotic innovations in agtech, it's burning the midnight. Oh, but I think the topic of kind of apple picking is really interesting, right? Because as you mentioned, there's so many different data points, time of the day, temperature, lighting, impacts on how an apple would look perfectly ripe to be picked by AI. But I imagine the training of that must be really fascinating, right? And actually looking at the results and how it improves over time based on different data sets it's looking at. But yeah, you'll have to, if you have any of those videos, please make sure you share them to me and Will, and we can add them in the comment section on YouTube.
I'm in. I'm up at 3 o'clock. So Baptiste, I'm good. I need to, branch out in terms of what I watch.
There you go. There's some homework. Well, Baptiste, it's been an amazing half an hour already. Really appreciate your sort of viewpoint and background from agronomy into investment. And I think that, as you mentioned, the value of what Farmland offers, not only owning the farmland, but then actively helping those companies to scale up is super interesting. Yeah, really appreciate your time here on the stream.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Will, any closing remarks from you, apart from your YouTube videos that you'll be watching tonight?
I got to go. I am, going to get them in the queue. I just think it's fascinating in terms of how you look at systems, not like, very narrow solutions, but you're really looking at, ag ecosystems, water, in a very, very broad way. So, yeah,
thank you.
Really insightful.
Thank you so much.
Great stuff. Thanks, Baptiste. Right. Let's keep in touch and have you back on the stream in a couple of seasons' time.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you.
Sounds great. Take care. Be well. Bye.